all of us at the end of life are going to need some help with things. And what happens if your family looks a little bit less traditional? If you find yourself at the end of life and you don't have a younger generation that you can rely on to help you, what are some of the things that you can do? It's an important conversation today. And as more and more younger couples are thinking about being child free, it's an important one to have with clients and with people in your family. So today we've got Maddy Roche. She's the Chief Growth Officer of Childfree Trust, and she's going to break it down for us. Welcome, Maddy.
Thank you, Cynthia, and great intro. And I just want to say, although I'm focused on just that child-free demographic, the population of us, the quarter of Americans that don't have kids, these are real questions for even people with kids. We should all be thinking about estate planning and continuity planning. I'm excited to dive into this conversation and be valuable, hopefully, to your listeners.
I'm sure it will be valuable. And, as I told you when we were chit-chatting at the beginning, we started recording, it's really been on my mind a lot lately. My father died a couple of years ago, and my mother, who is just about to turn 87, is at a stage where she needs quite a lot of help. So I've been thinking to working through these issues. Personally, have been recording a lot of content around preparing for end of life issues because it's really been on my mind. So thank you.
You're welcome. And we do find one of the most motivating things around estate planning and getting people to do estate planning is going through it and living through either a really good experience with it or a bad experience with it. So you're exactly right with that.
There are a lot of American households that aren't going to have that next generation to rely on when they're older.
Yeah, that's true. The demographics of folks without kids are shifting substantively and quite quickly. So if we just look at current stats right now, about a quarter of Americans don't have kids. And under that umbrella sits the group of us, about 20% who have chosen not to have kids, 5% of folks under that umbrella that have found themselves child-free by circumstance. And I always like to start with that just as a way to connect our community, but also acknowledge that there's a fundamental difference in our experiences in navigating life as a child-free person if you've chosen it versus maybe you didn't choose it. Anyone out there that have faced your own difficulties with having children, this conversation could be triggering and you may still be in a grief process, and that's okay. But your plan and your financial plan and your estate plan fundamentally changes when you don't have kids. And one of the things that I think there's a misconception is that kids do take care of parents. And yes, you're a fabulous daughter. You're helping navigate this for your mom. Even that's not always true.
It isn't always true. I mean that there's the will to do it, but there's great geographic distance between parents and children.
Exactly. Yeah. The percentage of folks, I think it's over 30%, live within more than 5 hours away from their closest family member. And so when we look at the numbers of folks that aren't having kids, there's a really growing demographic of folks 49 and younger. Pew Research came out with a study recently that 49 and younger, 49% of them, if they haven't had kids already, have said that they will not have kids. So if you can just think about what the next 15 to 20 years is going to look like when nearly half of our culture aren't having children, you just see how some systemic changes at a macro level things can be influenced. I'm not here to convince people to or not have kids. We're just here to talk about the realities of if our community is shifting more towards a lifestyle where children aren't always the assumed next of kin, we've got some different planning components on our hands.
I think about friends that I've had or clients that I've had who've been child-free by choice. And some are getting to the age now where they're worried about what happens if they need struggle with the day-to-day activities of living, or they worry about being in their house by themselves, or what happens if they can't pay their own bills or making their own medical decisions if they were unconscious, for example. It's serious stuff.
These are real important questions. And if you're child-free, whether by choice or circumstance, I really encourage you to, while you are healthy, begin to start making some plans. The last time you ever want to be trying to plan is during an emergency, when you're facing cognitive decline, when you're already in the hospital because the proverbial bus hit you. The more proactive we can be as child-free people, the better we can assure that our wishes are followed. And so there's real work that we can do ahead of time. Everything from touring facilities to putting down down payments on rooms that you may want to be in 10 years, to developing a team of people around you, from a great financial planner like you to having a great care manager, aging care manager, geriatric care manager, getting great doctors in place. When you really start, and I encourage people, pay for these relationships because they're going to be there for you when you need it. And so the more proactive you can begin thinking about on your chest what worries you the most. Some of us may have dementia in our family. If that's my biggest concern, I will be developing some continuity plans for myself if dementia were to be facing me at 40 or older at 60 or 7. And those plans should be documented and they should be part of your healthcare directives.
For those people who aren't aware, what are the fundamental estate planning steps that somebody should take? And again, this applies to everybody, totally, regardless of your circumstances. But what are some of the things that you need in place?
The two most important ones, because estate planning, we tend to just think about death, what happens when we die. And a lot of us child-free people are like, we don't care, we don't have kids. I really want to rebrand estate planning to be something that is not just death, because there's so many scenarios that you may have to rely on the documentation to assign ownership of helping you make decisions to someone else while you're still alive. So those two documents that really are triggered when you're still alive are your medical power of attorney and your financial power of attorney. Medical POA is who can act on your behalf to make sure that your wishes are followed, who will be working with the medical professionals to ensure that the care that you're getting is up to standard and to the point that you have wanted it. To end of life wishes around if you can't talk or act on your own, do you have decisions that need to be executed on your behalf that honor death with dignity? Financial POA is who's going to make sure your bills are paid? Who's going to make sure your dog walker's getting paid to get to your house, make sure your dog's let out? Who's going to make sure your taxes are filed? This is giving someone the actual permission to act as you in your financial picture. Then the two important documents is to set up a trust and a will for end of life. And this allows your actual assets and estate to get passed on and distributed as quickly and efficiently as possible. It avoids probate. It allows you to ensure that your end of life wishes are in fact honored, that the charities that you want to donate to get the money right away, that certain people that you don't want to get your money doesn't get it, has no legal standing to challenge it. There is a lot of reasons to have these documents in place, whether you're child free or not. And the stats around completion of documentation is astounding. I think the national average right now is 54% of Americans have a will, at least, or one piece of documentation.
I'm really surprised it's that high, actually.
For child-free folks, it's over 70% of us have no documentation. And one of the challenges that we see for people not getting their documentation done is because they don't have someone they want to burden with these roles. Because it's not easy to be someone's financial POA. It's not easy emotionally to be someone's medical power of attorney. And my God, I never want to be someone's executor or trustee. That's a whole world of responsibility I'm unfamiliar with. And so what we see delaying child-free folks around getting estate planning documentation done is that question of who do I nominate? Who can I actually trust to act as a fiduciary to be honoring my wishes? And that's the challenge that my company and myself have been dedicated to solving.
I could see this even being an issue for folks who are quite geographically far from their siblings, for example, and wouldn't be anybody who could come to the hospital and make decisions for them because their relatives are a continent away.
Totally. And this is a problem for parents too. Not all parents have children that they trust or want to burden or are accessible or competent enough to be making these decisions. So I really hope that as an industry in this estate planning world, that this problem continues to get solved for, because it is a glaring hole of a challenge that people just haven't had a good answer to.
And so you and the company that you've joined to grow Childfree Trust have created a pretty remarkable solution to all of this that may fit some people who are listening. Tell us more about that and what it is.
Yeah, sure. In my role here at Childfree Trust, and now that I'm in the estate planning world, is I just want those numbers that we talked about to rise. If that means you go to freewill.com and you create your will like I did while I was on an airplane to Hawaii, go get your documents done. If you are facing the challenge, though, of I don't have someone to nominate, that's where Childfree Trust can really come in. We have a three-pronged approach to managing estate planning for child-free people. First is that you get your legal documents done with us. We have child-free specific legal documents. So that means that we've removed conversation and language around generational wealth transfer. We've added things in like pet trusts. because 70% of child-free people have pets. So how do we actually give money and ensure that the pet will receive that money in a different way than just assigning a guardian? The second is that we offer that fiduciary representation. So for the first time ever in a nationwide way, you can nominate Child Free Trust to act on your behalf in any of those 4 capacities that we've listed. We don't have to be primary, but we always will be the automatic backup. And then finally, we've created a whole section of an interview that allows you to craft and keep updated your care plan, which is, where are you wanting to go if things decline? How do you want to be treated? What does your obituary say? Who do you want us to contact? It's deeply comprehensive, and it's an area where I think financial planners can really support the clients and having them think through some of these questions that aren't just end of life, but contingency plans.
Everybody needs that, right? To think about who would make decisions for me if something happens to me. That's part of being human. That's an important experience that a lot of people ignore.
Yeah. And it just some scenarios to think through is, say you're traveling in a different state, you don't have your documents done, you're riding your bike, you've gotten hit by a bus, and you're in a hospital. You find yourself being cared for by medical professionals. Yes, those medical professionals are trained and wonderful, but they'll be making decisions on your behalf unless there's a document in front of them that says that there's someone else there. So say you're terribly allergic to penicillin or a different medication that's often administered. How would they know? Maybe you have really clear wishes or religious beliefs on how to be treated. How would that medical professional know? Who do they contact once you do come to release you to? Well, a lot of surgeries require there to be someone who can drive you home after it. And so there's these different little things that we don't often think about, that having someone 24/7 to be able to pick up the phone, fax over your medical records and your wishes is a really important thing in your back pocket. And that's part of what our offering offers.
Yeah. Important medical decisions that preferably is made by somebody who knows something about what you want, not just looking at the document itself, but actually has had a conversation with you that understands a little bit. Most of our clients are real estate investors. That rental business has to go on, whether you're in the hospital or not. Somebody is got to be taking care of the properties, either managing them or working with the property manager, collecting rent, paying mortgages, and all of those things have to be taken care of, even if I don't know why everybody always gets hit by a bus in estate planning. If you're not able to do that yourself.
I think we just really underestimate how much we rely on our own competence to keep life moving forward. And I think your example of the real estate investors, it's a perfect one. Imagine you're unable to file your taxes for 6 months and you miss the deadline, you miss payments, and then you miss mortgage payments. There is so much that you could be documenting around. Here's my property manager. Cynthia's my advisor. Here's my core team. Go deploy them if I'm ever sitting in a hospital bed. And again, around the pet thing, we suspect most people who are child free will be more motivated to plan for their pets than themselves. But really, I've got 2 big dogs and a cat at home, and who contacts my people to make sure that those animals are taken care of? We just really always just behaviorally push off this estate planning stuff because it's hard to think about, when really it's our secret weapon of protection that life will be maintained if anything were to happen.
What drew you personally to work towards this important goal?
Yeah, I come from the financial planning space, and as I've thought about different niches and areas of support for clients, it's a competitive market. How do advisors differentiate themselves? And you've done such a beautiful job because you clearly have a niche, you clearly have a way of supporting those clients, but not all advisors do. And as I grew into my own identity and really realized that I wasn't going to have a kid or children, I met our co-founder, Dr. J, and he gave me a one-time plan of my own financial picture, and it blew my mind. It just fundamentally changed how I looked at life. And I've always worked with planners, and I love my planners, but I've even had to go back to them and say, hey, here's how my plan's different now that I'm not going to have kids. And everything shifts from considerations around estate planning to I'm going to die with zero. So what that means is that at some point, I don't have to earn as much as my counterparts. At some point, I've earned enough and I can start spending. That really shifts as a mid-professional, my trajectory in terms of what I need my future to look like. And so even just some of these little shifts have really drawn me to supporting the child-free community. And knowing the statistics and the shift that we're witnessing, I think it's just an open blue ocean of opportunity to serve these people and serve them well, because our system isn't really set up to support them. It was only a few years ago that financial planning software has allowed a couple not to be married or to have a same-sex couple or things like that. We're just a little
year ago.
Yeah, here we go. So how do I help with my own platform bring about more understanding of this community, cast a big umbrella to bring people under it and allow hopefully different services and offerings to be tailored to the group.
So for those people who aren't exactly aware, what trust company do?
A trust company is a regulated financial institution, often a fiduciary that acts as you when it comes to your finances. And it's essentially a bank that does not accept deposits. It's a heavily regulated industry. One of the challenges with a trust company is the amount of regulation that they have to be up to speed with and ensure that their service is actually serving their client's best interest. So when we think about nominating a trust company like Childfree Trust to be able to act on your behalf, you can trust there's multitudes of layers of regulatory oversight to ensure both that the trust company exists in perpetuity, but that it's actually acting on your behalf. The unique thing is that trust companies don't typically offer medical power of attorney services, and most of them are built on a traditional fee structure like assets under management that can often make child-free people not their ideal target client because many of us will at some point probably dip beneath their net worth requirements. When we think about child-free trust sitting on top of and partnering with a trust company, the scalability component becomes really important because you're not sitting on one point of failure. If I nominate just my brother to be my POA or trustee, if my brother's on vacation or out of pocket, was he available 24/7? Whereas a trust company is really intended to be built with the scalability of being available to support folks. So trust administrators at the trust company are qualified and capable of acting as you as a representative.
So it's so interesting, Maddie. My sister and I, who she is a couple of years younger than me, she does not have children and did not plan to have children. She has a large number of pets. We were making decisions for our mother, and she was like, "I just don't know who I would have to do this for me." And I said, "No, you can name me your Steve or what if you want to, right? You can name our younger sister, who's much younger."
Most of us know someone who doesn't have kids. And it is a question. And as I have a whole community of child free people in my life. And I suspect some of them may want me to act in some of these roles. And I'll always say yes, so long as they're a child free trust client, which means I have a backup if it becomes too much. And what we see is actually having a shift around perception is that it's actually advantageous to have a third party that's unbiased be making decisions based on your wishes. Because again, kind of lifestyle choices and religious preferences and the emotional burden of making a decision around end of life for someone that you love, you may think that they really know your wishes and they may not actually honor them.
You have a subscription model.
Yep, it's $1,000 a year to be able to have child-free trust in the background, and I can't compare it to insurance because insurance is a very regulated industry, but it is a way of thinking about it where in an ideal world, 1/3 of us will pass away in our sleep and we'll never need financial or medical POA. But this is set up really to give that peace of mind that child-free people need to be able to live as confidently as they want. I appreciate the opportunity to talk about child-free trust, but most importantly, I appreciate the opportunity to talk about how being child-free impacts your finances because ultimately we do deserve advice that's tailored to us. I encourage anyone out there who's shopping for advisors because 80% of child-free people have never worked with an advisor to ask the question of how is my plan different because I'm child and look for advisors that are fluent in those areas.
I'm sure every financial planner will tell you that the least implemented guidance is around the estate and contingency plans that Americans just are afraid of death. But people with little children who don't have wills or guardians for their kids or life, they just don't about it.
It's scary. It got scary. I wish advisors could require that their clients have these documents in place because it puts you guys in a really vulnerable position.
Yeah.
It's just a nightmare if your clients go into guardianship and all of a sudden you own all their investment accounts and can't make trades, pay their bills. Oh my God. So having people.
Is there bill pay too?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, yeah.
And that could be a voluntary trigger. If you feel like you're aging to a point where it's just administratively too much, you can turn on financial POA.
That's interesting.
So part of the financial planning or part of the financial POA is that bill pay is included. We can really take over really any of the financial side of your picture at a voluntary level. So say you're aging and you feel like, oh, it's just administratively a lot to handle all the investment properties that I've got and manage my taxes and pay my bills, things like that. You can voluntarily turn that on.
Yeah. I think people would turn that on with more security where they're giving their authority to a reputable fiduciary institution as opposed to just handing it to their sister-in-law or something.
Yeah. And again, remember, so much of this comes down to preparation and making sure that you've documented comprehensively what you manage on a day to day, and not just what your wishes are, but really what are your subscription accounts. I think the average time it takes to close an estate is 900 hours. That's insane to have to go into someone's house, figure out, okay, they have a Hulu account. We got to turn that off. They've got Spectrum for their internet. There's
So
just a
much.
lot to outline. And so being preemptive in that and proactive allows the trust company to do it seamlessly for you. And so the best case scenario is that the trust company turns on and activates in one of these roles, and they have a complete picture of who you are, what your accounts are, how it needs to be managed so that they can just continue to be your quarterback.
That's good guidance. What else are you curious about right now?
I am really interested in how this world will shift over the next few years and decades around not having kids. I know I keep going back to this conversation, but I'm live and breathe this information. But from a macro level, we start thinking about, say, the real estate industry. So right now, everyone's buying single family homes and things like that. If we think about 20 years from now, when we have nearly 50% of our population not having kids, is a single family home really the number one investment for our population? Or is it more of these community living environments? Is it more apartment buildings where child-free people can live together? You look abroad and there's a lot of interesting information and initiative.
Co-housing and just intentionally planned communities where the physical space creates interaction, the opportunities for daily interaction.
Totally, totally. And Dr. J often says child-free people often rent, they don't buy, because we're nomadic in nature. Many of us will move a number of times over the course of our lives. Is that investment the same for us as it is for other people? It is really fascinating.
And where can people find you online?
I'm on LinkedIn, Maddy Roche, and you can find me at Childfree Trust, www.childfreetrust.com. Love to answer any questions. You can always email questions at childfreetrust.com. But Cynthia, it's always so nice to chat with you, and I appreciate the firm you've built and the role that you play in this industry. And it's always been fun to know you.
And as always, it's fantastic to talk to you, and I hope you'll come back and talk again.
I hope so. Thanks, guys.